Hey guys, Argent here. So I received some requests for more mental health related things. This is not exactly a mental health thing, although it's closely related. It's a neurological disorder. This is whenever I talk about having a disability, and I do get to put this down on hiring forms. Not that it's really seemed to help me much. This is as a disability. I don't have autism, although this can seem similar to autism. I have bipolar and a nonverbal learning disability, and the symptoms are rather similar, but there's a lot of noticeable things lacking. I don't really have an empathy disorder. Actually, if anything, I have excessive amounts of empathy, which is part of the reason for my often depressive phases. Um, but yeah, this is I think something people occasionally see. If anyone notices, I will often in conversation, if you're talking to me to text, if there's two words that are phonetically the same, like then and then, or see and see, or mute, or just something like that, I will often use the wrong one, and I don't even notice I'm using the wrong one. There and there, I frequently will use the wrong one. It's because I literally can't cognate them properly. To me, I look at it and it just looks the same. So it's not that I'm stupid. Something to keep in mind with nonverbal learning disability in particular is people who have it often tend to test very high on IQ tests. It has to be a specific type of IQ test, though, that's kind of adjusted for them, because otherwise they'll score incredibly low. On IQ tests, if I do them online, I normally get 110, 120 range. When I was tested when I was in grade 3, I got 99.99 percentile, so an IQ of 130 to 140. It was a little lower, like 99.7 or so, when I was retested in grade 11. It's really hard to tell which one to use. Some people say the more recent one. Some people say the more thorough, earlier one, because they spent a lot more time testing me when I was younger. What they found, though, that while my IQ was in... And I just talk about this because it's important to understand it's not the same thing as being kind of like mentally handicapped or something. It's very common to test like IQ 110 and above and have a nonverbal learning disability. If anything, because the IQ is unevenly distributed, verbal IQ will be much, much higher than that. Extremely high. Performance IQ, I think it's called, will be extremely low. Like, I never was able to handwrite. I have extreme trouble learning a second language. I've gotten better at spelling over the years. I can barely print, though. And that's why I don't really blog much. Because it's literally like pulling teeth for me to have to write things down. Like, I can just do one of these videos. I can just come up with it, keep it in my head. I have very good memory. I have excellent memory, actually. So I can come up with this and then just kind of talk off my mental notes. But if I have to write notes down, it's like pulling teeth. It just, and we'll get into this. So this is a story that I think really accurately describes it. The plane was late. The terminal was wall to wall. This is a story of someone who has nonverbal learning disability. And the ladies' room could charitably be described as gross. For some reason, probably to remain sane, I began singing I Fought the Law and the Law Won over and over again as loudly as I could. Fortunately, I was singing this in my head, for had I been singing out loud, the law probably would have carted me away. I hear music perfectly in my head, but am totally tone deaf. I'm totally tone deaf. I can't sing. People can't even tell. When I was a child, a piano teacher came to our house to give my sister and me our first lesson. She couldn't say enough great things about my sister, but she said about me, how can you even think of giving her lessons? She's retarded. I know my parents felt that way. My music teacher actually thought I was retarded. She treated me like I was a retard. Because I can't do music. I just can't. When it came to actually doing like the theoretical stuff, like Reading notes or like anything that didn't involve carrying a tune, I actually got like 100% on that. But if it came to playing an instrument, I just couldn't do it. How could you even think of giving your lessons? My parents tried to stop the piano teacher from talking, but I never forgot what she said. I've had a lot of people tell me that. My father, who thought I could be perfect if I only tried harder, and I've had a lot of people tell me that over the years, asked me to practice so I could show the teacher. My mother told him to drop it. He realized how sad I was and turned it into a joke. We all knew my father had taken piano lessons for 7 years and could only play one song, the Anniversary Waltz, which he played often and not always appropriately. He played it that day and I laughed, but my heart was broken. I had already been kicked out of ballet lessons. I had already been kicked out of softball. I was a failure at sports for a number of reasons. I still to this day wish I could sing, dance, and play an instrument or a sport. To join a band as I had the chick rock star look down perfectly. I can't sing, I said. You can play the tambourine. I have no sense of rhythm. You can just stand there and pretend. I couldn't even do that, or wouldn't, of course. My confidence level was somewhere below a 9 is 10. Let's see here. There was so much I couldn't do. I couldn't learn another language nor spell, and my handwriting was illegible. I couldn't learn math past percentages. I was probably only good at arithmetic because my father was a CPA and would drill me every night. Actually, I'm pretty good at doing mental math. Partially because I find using a calculator difficult. I'm hopeless of doing any form of long form. So to kind of compensate, I've developed pretty good mental math. I'm actually not terrible at math. I'm just bad at the way it's taught, I think is the way to put it. Like when I took it at a postgraduate level, I actually got like A pluses in it. But when I took it in high school, I was like a B student. I was mediocre at it. I never learned the rules of grammar. I actually have no idea. I still have to think to remember what an adjective, noun, or any other part of speech is. I think I know what a noun is. I was never able to learn it. My teachers gave up because I just couldn't figure it out. People will say things to me like, you misused an indefinitive nomenclature or something. I'm just like, what the hell does that even mean? My writing ability is purely instinctive. I was one of the most read personal bloggers for over 2 years. Trust me, I had no idea what I was doing. My blog didn't have a master plan. I didn't have a theme. My posts were long. Were I to begin blogging now that there are rules, I wouldn't even attempt to begin a blog. You may have noticed that from this channel. I have many deficits, and yet I am smart. My IQ has been tested well above average. I confuse people constantly. That was something they didn't understand. When I was tested, as all children are tested in Ontario, I scored as having a post-secondary level vocabulary in grade 3, but a pre-kindergarten level of handwriting. That means I spend too much time being angry because inside me is a very smart person who can't tie her shoelaces properly. I've never been able to really figure that out. That took years for me to learn. And only recently I've begun to learn order in every sense. Nonverbal learning, NLD, is diagnosed in children who may show very impressive verbal reading and spelling and rote memory skills, but very weak motor, social, sensory, and visual spatial abilities. Non-verbal learning disability is a neurological disorder overlapping with and possibly occupying the same end of the autism spectrum as Asperger's syndrome. I don't have the TISM. I have been tested for that. They thought I did, but there's a lot of reasons to indicate I don't. It originates in the brain's right hemisphere, that is part of the brain that deals with performance-based information, and according to the Nonverbal Learning Disorder Association, when there is a deficit, it is in the visual, spatial, intuitive, organizational, evaluative, and holistic processing functions. If you saw me in person, you would know why it is. Also known as the clumsy child syndrome. I'm incredibly clumsy too. Part of that's just I have massive hands. I couldn't clean my room when I was a kid, and I couldn't clean my apartment properly as an adult. I was sloppy. I was used the past tense because I learned to fake it. Maybe everybody fakes their way through life. I wouldn't know. I'm too busy trying to fake it right now. I had many secrets as a child because I didn't want to hurt my parents. So I didn't tell them that kids would tease me beginning around age 9 because I couldn't run, catch, or throw a ball. Yes, that was very much how I was. I was also just kind of overweight as a child. But I had such horrible visual motor skills. I couldn't throw a ball properly. My parents would tell me to try harder. My father devised exercises that didn't help. My parents tried so hard I felt bad for them. Yeah, that's true. I had my first fight with a therapist when I was 9. I had therapy when I was 9. What was I doing in therapy? 9-year-olds aren't supposed to be in therapy. But in many ways, I was never a typical child. I could sense that I was different. My parents watched me try so hard and their hearts broke. I went for tests. I only remember being given an IQ test verbally. The tester yelled at me because I did so well but didn't know what Genesis was. Okay. Let's see here. I found out later that the particular IQ test was supposed to be given to adults, not 5th grade girls, and I still did incredibly well. There were many other tests. The results were inconclusive, though they thought I might have a touch of cerebral palsy. I am awkward and uncoordinated, and when under stress it got worse. As a child, I did not have the grace of other young girls, nor the fluidity of movement, speech, and thought. My years as a child in Queens and adolescence in the Jericho... Okay, let's see here. I would constantly be berated for teachers for sloppy notebooks and illegible handwriting, singled out and humiliated in front of my classroom. That happened to me a lot. That's part of the reason why I have such low self-esteem and full of self-loathing. Because of how many times I was mocked by teachers or other students for my horrible handwriting. I was a special case, they'd say, and I was called stupid by teachers in front of my classmates. Classmates who already thought I was a physical mess, clumsy and uncoordinated. My first panic attack was on notebook inspection day in 2nd grade. As my last name begins with an S, I had much time to wait and imagine the consequences. Miss Schreiber was thrilled with most kids' notebooks. We were 2-1, the smart class. I'm sure she said bad things about a few people, but nothing compared to when she saw my notebook. Silence, dead silence. Then she screamed. She had never seen a notebook that was as bad as mine. She held it out for the class to see. None of my notes were in order. My handwriting was illegible. Yeah, I cried a lot as a kid just because teachers would attack me and other kids would attack me and my parents would get angry. I do good on tests because I have good memory. I just can't take notes for the life of me. It actually is physically painful to write shit down. When she spoke to me and demanded answers about the notebook's condition, I couldn't answer even had I already answered. I didn't know why it was so bad. If I could have made it better, I would have. My parents made one of their frequent trips to the school. They could only supervise my homework. They couldn't be in class with me. My parents didn't want school to be my whole life. I tested exceptionally well on standardized tests. As long as I played a role, I couldn't fail. That made my 2nd and 4th grade teachers crazy. My 4th grade teacher told me in front of the whole class that I didn't deserve to be in a 1 class. She said I was a sloppy, lazy girl who didn't think like the other girls. I was developing early and wasn't proud of it. She pointed out my prepubescent body out to the kids, remarking about my breasts. She would not have felt entitled to treat me this way had I been the student she respected. Interestingly enough, I went through puberty pretty early. So I had facial hair back when I was in grade 8, which a lot of people mocked me for. Somehow that got back to my mother, who seemed upset about my new bad body image that being taken out of a 1 class. Outside of school, I had neighborhood friends who I knew didn't really get me or liked me. Non-competitive sports calmed me, and I preferred roller skate and ice skate badly because I enjoyed going round and round the ink. My parents insisted I spend at least as much time doing these types of activities as I was doing homework. My mother got me an adult library card in the 2nd grade, and I would take out the maximum amount of 5 books each week. Yeah, because when I was in grade 4, I read all the Lord of the Rings books. And I, from that time on, I've read probably 30, 40 books a year. This year I've read 60 or 70. It's just, I can read very fast. Friends and family couldn't believe I read so fast and comprehended the material. Even kids were constantly testing me to make sure I understood. It was never easy. I was the girl who had to give an oral report in 8th grade and no words came out from my mouth. My teacher found that very funny. Actually, I've never had trouble presenting in front of classes. I normally do a lot better on verbal presentations, as you may have noticed. So that the same teacher insisted I be present and everybody laughed. Let's see here. Um, when I reached junior high, I failed typing and almost failed everything else. My typing teacher would yell at me because I had a light touch and couldn't get the letters to come out. I couldn't memorize the keyboard. That didn't really matter. Yeah, it took me years to memorize the keyboard. Even then, I often type looking at the keyboard. It's just kind of a procedural thing I find hard. Um, let's see here. Typing was really what kind of liberated me, and what kind of made me develop better skills over time. I was allowed to take all my tests in university and high school, like all my final exams on a computer, and my grades like doubled. Or no, they went up like 20% when I started to do that, because I can type pretty well, especially with spell check. I'm still clumsy and I still make a lot of errors, but I can do it at like a semi-normal pace. Let's see here. The best, let's see here. It was acceptable to treat me as if I were trash, and one thing I realized early in life, kids imitate adults. Let's see here. School is torture for an undiagnosed nonverbal learning disability child. You never really get used to being yelled at. Yep. It wasn't as if I was a bad girl. I never cut classes. I didn't hang out in the bathroom. I didn't even have anybody to eat lunch with, very much like my childhood. But there were very brief moments of triumph of all. Let's see here. My 10th grade biology teacher saw that I understood the material but couldn't answer standard 4-choice tests. I'm always bad at those. He gave me special essay tests. I did well. I always do good on papers. Like if I had to write a paper in university, I do very good at that. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm just looking through this. Anyways, let's see here. So this is just some other stuff that's not really that important. What you need to know about nonverbal learning disability. One of the most misdiagnosed of all disorders, nonverbal learning disorder, is a neurological condition that... okay, let's see here. The condition often gets undiagnosed because the child is usually eloquent, retains auditory material, and can read at a younger than normal age. I actually learned to read late, but I went from being completely illiterate to being like high school level reader in like a year. As with any disorder, a child can have any or all of the symptoms at different levels of impairment. NLD has a high official prevalence rate of 6%, and it is believed by many experts to be much more common than that, since it is often misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all. Now, what it could be is it could just be like natural. I mean, not a disorder at all. It could just be some people are better geared for certain types of things, and that's the reason. Let's see here. Spatial relations are key to understanding the world, for instance. The distance between two people, a child might stand too close or too far, in an intuitive attempt to make up for this spatial deficit. People think that these children are paying attention to their surroundings when in fact the child is paying too much attention. The child will have difficulty with executive function. This includes decision-making, planning, initiative. I actually don't have most of those problems. Emotional regulation, yes. Problem solving is not actually a problem for me at all. Let's see here. We'll has problems comprehending nonverbal communication, has difficulty adjusting to new situations and transitions, and has deficits in both social situations and social judgment. Yes. Let's see. No kinesthetic ability. Yep, very much true. Let's see here. So anyways, that's basically kind of a blast to the past. That's kind of what my childhood was like. It's a bit like autism. It doesn't affect as many things. But I think you can definitely see it. I think I often have, people might think I kind of have something that sounds like the autism accent. I forget what it's called, but that doesn't come from autism actually. It comes from a nonverbal learning disability. Um, I just can't really hear tone and pitch. So that's the reason my voice probably sounds droning and monotone a lot of the time. Anyways, I hope you found that interesting. I'll include a link to that article, of course. This is Argent Templar signing out.